Welcome on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phil and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we got a lot to get to. With about a month to go until the MLB draft, we will have our first ever mock draft. We're also going to get into the Aberdeen IronBirds, who've already clinched their playoff spot, are more than 20 games over 500. And then we will get into a little bit of some promotions news that dropped today on Monday, June 20th. But first, I'll introduce our guest for tonight's episode. You have heard him before on this show, talking Rule 5 picks, very passionate supporter of the Orioles and of the show, very knowledgeable one as well. He's Vivek Shukla. Vivek, great to have you back.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Happy to join. And I know in our group we've been talking a lot about these draft picks and where the Orioles could go. So, thank you for letting me be on and discussing a little bit of this.
Yeah, hopefully they don't cancel the MLB draft now that we have had you on like they did with the Rule 5 draft. But
yeah, I don't even know what I'd say.
Well, on that note, we'll jump right into the mock draft, which is not something we have done on this show before. And Bob, Nick, as far as I know, this will be the only mock draft that we do between now and the draft in mid-July, but we'll see how things go. And for that 1-1 pick, which is what I know most of our listeners are waiting for, there actually is a strong consensus here on where we're going, but it's not unanimous. So I'm going to start with a person who had a different pick for 1-1, and that's Bob.
Yeah, I'll start with that. But first of all, the guy that you might think, oh, it's unanimous, it's going to be this guy. Maybe not. Maybe not. I went with Tamar Johnson in my personal mock draft just because I feel like he fits the bill. Even though he's a high school player, he's a high hit tool guy, polished hitter. He's got power, something to work with in this player development system. And I feel like, especially now that you see his name dropping down on boards, you're going to be able to get him at that first pick cheaper than a guy like Drew Jones, save some of that money. And I'm assuming that they'll have Jones and Johnson similar skill sets. I mean, as far as like good of players they think they are. So they'll get the guy that's comparable, but a cheaper cost, use that money down the line. And I just think I haven't fallen out of love with Tamar Johnson's bat, despite him slipping down boards. I just don't understand why. Vivek was talking to us before the show started about his performance at the Combine. And it's like, not surprised. This kid is the real deal. So I would be super happy with Tamar Johnson. I'd be super happy with Drew Jones. I'd be happy with the guy that is our consensus pick here. But for me, I went Tamar Johnson. Just think you get that bat in the system. And if he's a second baseman, he's a second baseman. If he's a third baseman, he's a third baseman. It doesn't matter. You get that bat in there, you develop it, and you fit him in where you can.
Yeah, with Tamar Johnson, if the pick is Tamar Johnson, I'll just speak to that and say that I don't care about the position. And I'm glad that I don't see a lot of other people, especially these like big national talking heads, harping on that. The fact that he's a second baseman, it just seems to be like it's his fellow high school teammates are the ones that are ruining this for him.
Exactly.
So it's, if the hit tool is as advertised, I don't care if he's a second baseman. I don't care what position he plays. You bring him in the system, and I'd be fine with that as well. I honestly, there's one name, and Vivek mentioned this before he came on, and I agree with. If it's Jacob Berry 1-1, I'm throwing something. But anyone else, like only because it'll make Keith Law right, and I hate that. But anything else, like I don't really see any downsides to any of these guys. I think when Mike Elias says this is a really tough decision, I do not envy him or anyone else on this final decision panel, because doesn't seem to be that clear-cut, bona fide, there's no doubt this is 1-1. And so when you have more options, definitely makes it a lot harder.
And the Orioles had Tamar Johnson in for a private workout at Camden Yards. So if they do take him, it's because maybe they saw something there. They're going to have metrics on him. And I'm sure they'll have metrics on all these top guys. So whoever they take, they're going to take for a reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I think of Tamar Johnson, at least, I think you had Ben Badler, I think, on the podcast, and he was talking about, I think, the comparisons to, right, there's Tony Gwynn, there's Wade Boggs, there's elite hit tool, and at a certain point, it's just like, how can you maybe pass that up? Like, worst, what do you put him in, even in corner left field or whatnot? But if the bat itself is very unique and if it's one of the best prep bats that we've seen in many, many years, it's kind of hard to pass up. I think you also had, I think, the guy from Prospects Live talk about how I don't think Tamar went to a lot of big showcases. And in fact, this combine itself was like a great way for everyone to be like, oh, do you remember Tamar Johnson? I know it's falling down on your boards, but he's legit. Maybe he doesn't attend all these different, events, but I think, no, he would be a stellar pick. I don't know if it would be an underslot, but I think I would probably project that as being more of an underslot based off of just where the rankings are. And man, an elite hit tool and power tool and the Orioles development system, incorporating force plates and everything. The roof, man, through the roof could potentially, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, if the Orioles went under slot with Johnson, I'd be thrilled. I think that he's got the kind of skills you want in someone who's a top pick, in the sense that he has that plus tool. He's very safe in a way, but then there's also a little bit of projectability there for him to get better as a hitter. Defensively, I think it's a big question mark, but there are some skills there that stick. But I'm going to go to the consensus 1-1 here, and I'll let Nick start this one because Vivek, Nick, and I had the same player as the top pick in this draft. And Nick, who is it?
Yeah, it's a prep shortstop, Jackson Holliday. I mean, here's my thought process here. Without having any access to the data, no firsthand knowledge of these guys or info about the financial aspect of each player, which is probably the most important factor here. Like, this is a complete guess, but I think that my heart wants Drew Jones. I want that to be the pick ultimately. But I think when you look at everything and combine all the factors here, I just think it's going to be Jackson Holliday. Like, you still get good bloodlines. That's something that when I was in preparation for this, so many teams, reports are coming out from a lot of teams saying that like they really want the guys with the bloodlines. Your Justin Crawford, your Elijah Greens, they want one of these guys in their system. Holliday has that bloodlines. The Orioles, there's a lot of connections to that Oklahoma State program as well, recent connections. So maybe there's like a good relationship with his dad and what his uncle also is on the coaching staff there. So maybe there's that relationship already being built up. I'd also imagine, I don't know for sure, but it would take a lot less money than Drew Jones. So if there's no clear-cut 1-1, like I said earlier, and you have all of these guys and that have a legitimate case to be 1-1 or the top player in this draft, why not save the money and go after Jackson Holliday? And I think Kylie McDaniel at ESPN even recently said that scouts are pretty much coming into agreement here that he's a top 3-4 player in this draft. And he's been the biggest riser. So that's why I like this pick. But at the end of the day, there's just so many factors that go into this decision. I think also like who they are as a person that we don't know. Who fits that growth mindset mentality that the Orioles are all about. And so, yeah, so it's Jackson Holliday. And so there's a big portion of the fan base that's already tuned out and doesn't want to listen anymore.
Yeah, another left-handed infielder. It's probably going to stick at shortstop. Kind of would fit the Orioles bill as well, just because he's super well-rounded. He's got a 60 hit tool, 55 power, 60 run, 55 field, 60 arm. So kind of like Jordan Westberg bulked up a little bit, like boosted up on every grade and hitting from the left side. Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool too.
Yeah, I think at least with Jackson Holliday, and I've only seen a few videos. By no means are we scouts by any means, but I think, say hypothetically, right, it's $1.5-2 million savings, and I think Elias even said like he wants to maximize on these first 5 picks, and we've always seen different prep arms or prep bets drop in the draft, and I don't know if we would go college heavy in one direction or high school heavy, but 1.5 million, 2 million is a lot to potentially be able to play around with. With Jackson Holliday, like, right, starting off with someone who could potentially work at shortstop, you can maybe slot him over to second base, third base. His rise right now kind of reminds me of Marcelo Mayer, when last year we were all, maybe it's Jordan Lawler or thinking of potentially even Kumar Rocker or Jack Leiter at that time when all these were rising. And I think Yeah, Jackson Holiday definitely. From the underslot perspective, I also wanted to mentally, I guess, prepare myself that I've done this 2 drafts where 2020 I kind of went in with the thought of Austin Martin, and it couldn't be anyone else. And then 2021, I loved Khalil Watson jumping in, or potentially Jordan Lawler. But I think at least at this pace, I've been trying to not commit myself to one person. So Jackson Holiday, at least right now, is showing 5 tools that are above average to plus, and that's something you can really work with there. So premium position, shortstop. I'm curious to see if he gets in a workout or already has worked out with the Orioles, but Drew Jones would also be a great pick, and I think everyone would be there. But I'm also thinking of the possibility of, if Elias really wants to maximize these 5 picks, we could see this strategy again.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I think that Holiday just has the above average tools across the board. And I think the Orioles like that middle infield, high school profile. You add in a left-handed bat that projects for a little bit of power. And I think that my sense is just that Holiday is where they're leaning. I could be completely off about this, and there could be a lot of overthinking as far as the draft goes in Drew Jones, but I would not be shocked if Holiday is called 1-1. And honestly, I don't think that if Holiday is drafted, it's going to be that far under slot, because I think with the way that his draft stock has risen in the last few months, there's not that much leverage there. There are a lot of players further down this board that we're going to mention tonight that you could definitely get for, considerable under slot value. And I don't think Holiday is that at this point. It's just that he's not maybe going to command the top bonus, but then you're going to have, the above average tools across the board. Plus, let's look at who the Orioles are having success with right now. Gunnar Henderson, Kobe Mayo, high school infielders who hit for power, that play on the left side of the infield. And unlike a lot of high school shortstops, most reports suggest that Jackson Holiday can stick at the position. And I think that's going to factor heavily into the Orioles pick here. And Drew Jones can stick in center field, but I don't know. I feel like if the Orioles were all in on Drew Jones, every mock draft right now would reflect that. We're a month out. Things might change in the next few weeks, but I feel like the mock drafts would reflect that the Orioles are all in on Drew Jones, and right now they don't.
That's a great point, Zach. And it is true that Mike Elias and company, they keep a tight ship. There's not many leaks getting out of that front office, and it's pretty exciting. I feel like it was between Bobby Witt and Adley the last time we had 1-1, but I feel like we all had an idea that it was going to be Adley once the time came. Right now, we're sitting with the first pick of the draft. We have no clue what is going to happen. It's going to be crazy exciting once Sunday, July 17th rolls around and we're on the clock. The nerves are going to be everywhere. But I mean, I don't know. It could be Elijah Green. He's got the most potential upside of all this group. It could be Brooks Lee. He's a polished college shortstop as well. And obviously we've liked college guys in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
I felt like those 5 to 6 guys that Elias is talking about. I think I saw an Andy Kaska's article about Elias even said this is going to be a lively debate and discussion. So the group that he's working with for this pick, I'm sure these 5-6 people that we're even identifying have a great case to be number 1. And I think one of the things the Orioles fans should take away is maybe don't fixate into your mind that it has to and only will be Drew Jones, and that's your only possible pick. And I'm saying this to Orioles Twitter as well, I guess, in a way, where there's so much that could happen, and every team evaluates different tools or values them differently. So there's really a good 5-6 bunch here, outside what Nick had mentioned with maybe our personal distaste. But I think, I don't envy Elias. This would be a very, very hard decision to make.
Yeah, I'm fine if it's Tamar Johnson. I'm fine if it's Jackson Holiday. Deep down, there's still a small part of me that isn't, that I am kind of fixated on Drew Jones because I think that would be just absolutely amazing. But at the same time, the more you read about Jackson Holiday, and it's like everything is there, all the tools are there, and the growth in such a short time span that he's exhibited along the way as well. You can't dislike that. So yeah, I'm fine with either if it's either of these guys. And like I said, I just think that the separating factor, if the talent level is based on the Orioles model and all of their data, all their numbers and all their workouts, if the talent level is fairly similar and the money is big enough, money difference is big enough, then they're going to cut a deal and they're going to go after some of these guys. I've got one in my mock draft. This is why I went Jackson Holiday, because I identified a guy later in the draft that I think the Orioles could go after. So, and you get more studs into the system. It's not a bad route to get 2 studs, possibly landing. Well, I'll save that for later. I don't want to spoil anything, but
it's worth noting also that the Orioles seem to really value character a lot, clubhouse chemistry. I think we've seen that as well as the minor leagues come up. Seems like these guys are all good guys. They get along. They're competitive, but not, I don't know, selfish in too much of a way. So that's another factor. And what else was I going to say? Shoot.
Well, Bob, to your point, remember when Brad Seelick was on the show, he said the one reason he does not want a player to not make the major leagues is because of makeup. So I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, that's true. And I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say that the only good thing about having 1-1 right here, with the team playing better, having the best farm system in baseball, all these exciting prospects all the way at the major leagues are close to it with Gunnar Henderson. It's kind of like the cherry on top, this 1-1 pick here. I feel like before, we turn this corner, hopefully this offseason coming up. So maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off. It's not like, hey, this is the guy that we're centering our rebuild on and it all comes down to this. It's just like, here's one more special player for the system to put into it.
Yeah, we were talking about it before the show. If this 1-1 is a bust, we're a couple months into next season and things aren't going very well and there are serious questions and doubts, just watch Gunnar Henderson highlights and you'll be all right. We'll be good.
Well, with that, I'll turn it now to the 2nd through 5 picks in this draft. Now, we have a consensus number 2 in the draft. But beyond that, it gets a little bit interesting. And I'll let Vivek start here with his players 2 through 5. So that's going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks 2nd, Texas Rangers 3rd, Pittsburgh Pirates 3rd, Washington Nationals 4th. That's a Pittsburgh Pirates 4th and Washington Nationals 5th.
Sure. So yeah, I guess jumping into it, at least from this consensus, something we saw with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and maybe this is something I chose just from the pick of Jordan Lawler. There was about a 2 million slot difference between getting Colton Cowser versus Jordan Lawler. I think Jordan Lawler actually went for 7 million. So they had to pull from other different pick money. So I imagine a scenario here, and Arizona's got great prospects. Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll is also another good one. But still, you could still supplement it. It's all based off getting the best pick and value. I think they would take Drew Jones. From there, I went with Texas Rangers, and Texas has, they went with Jack Leiter last draft, and at least right now, I think if they want someone who could relatively move quickly, really good hit tool, maybe someone even also in a leadoff position to maybe supplement in the future. You have Corey Seager for a while. You have Marcus Semien for a while. I like Brooks Lee value here. I think there's a part of me that was thinking Jace Jung just because of the brother being in the system. But I think I was like, okay, maybe I'll go with Brooks Lee here. Pittsburgh Pirates, I think, truthfully, if Pittsburgh got Tamar Johnson here at 4, that'd be great for their system. Like, man, Nick Gonzalez, Tamar Johnson, O'Neal Cruz, Yadier Peguro, so that'd be great. And then rounding off at 5, I know they have Kybert Ruiz, but also it's right. You still continue to build value no matter what. I like Kevin Pareda a lot. If we didn't have the number 1 pick, and even though he's a catcher, man, I think he hit over 26 plus home runs this year. Amazing 300 to 400 batting average just in between there. And Georgia Tech is really good with developing and sending over these catchers. So yeah, I went with Pareda at 5. So Drew Jones, Diamondbacks, Brooks Lee, Rangers, Tamar Johnson, Pirates, Kevin Pareda, Nationals.
I like it. I can go with mine. I had some of the similar thought processes, but different players in some of these spots. Diamondbacks, it's obvious Drew Jones. Yeah, I think Zach mentioned we all have Drew Jones here. They want one of these two guys. They want Holiday or they want Jones, apparently. And so I'd be shocked if it's Elijah Green, especially if Drew Jones has fallen to number 2. Texas Rangers, I went the same thing. I thought you go Jack Leiter last year and start him off at AA to make his pro debut, which is absurd. They spent all that money that we talked about in the preseason, all the big free agents they brought in, and the baseball world says, what are you guys even doing right now? You're not ready to compete. So I went the college route as well, but I'm going Kevin Parada at number 3, just because, like Vivek mentioned, like I love the hit tool as well. I think Prospects Live had a note that I was reading that says this is a potential 290 hitter who hits 40 plus home runs in the middle of a major league lineup for years to come. So I think this is a guy who isn't in the minor leagues for very long. And I am in the same boat. Like, if I know the Orioles have the 1-1 pick, and I know Orioles fans would like burn the warehouse down and personally move the Orioles to Nashville if the pick is Parada, but the guy can hit. It's not going to be Kevin Parada though. Everybody calm down. I got him going to Texas. Pirates, I went Brooks Lee. The Pirates fans and Orioles fans are so similar in how they view their organizations. And I think Ben Cherington and how Michael Elias are attacking their rebuilds are pretty similar. So I went the college bat who can progress pretty quickly and possibly save them a little bit of money here. Not totally sure there, but sounds like they probably could. And then the Nationals, I went based on how my board was falling. I think a Brady House Tamar Johnson combo in the system would be pretty insane, but I went with Elijah Green. He's the highest upside left. You get a 1-1 candidate with the 5th pick, and there you go. Nationals get a pretty good prospect. They need some more studs in that system, and Elijah Green is certainly going to be one, I think.
Yeah, that's some good thought process there. I was along similar lines. Drew Jones obviously going to the Arizona Diamondbacks if the Orioles don't take him. I think it's a great fit for their system as well. Just imagine defensively and offensively an outfield of Corbin Carroll, Drew Jones, and Alec Thomas. That's pretty great with Jordan Lawler at shortstop. So I'm a little jealous of that situation that they would have right there. Texas Rangers, I went with Jackson Holiday just because he's rising up boards, and at least in my mock, he was still available. So it seemed like a good fit for them. Pittsburgh Pirates, like you said, they're kind of in a similar boat. I feel like they're the National League version of the Orioles right now. And I have them taking Cam Collier, who is very young, right? He's like a high school junior, basically, and he's graduating here. I feel like he's rising up lists. And the Pirates seem to be doing really well with young talent, like internationally and high school picks. They took James Wood last year. I think they're doing a really good job. So I just think that is a high upside pick they could have. And then Washington Nationals, I have taken Brooks Lee. I feel like it's kind of like the Nationals, they feel like a safe organization to me when it comes to drafting. And I think Brooks Lee is probably as safe as it gets with what's available at that point.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the way things unfolded here. We obviously agree on Drew Jones, number 2, the D-backs. I think that that's their preferred target. And if the Orioles do pass on him, which seems to be the consensus on this show, that's where they're going to go. And I'll admit, for me, the hardest pick was the Rangers, because I thought about Kevin Parada for a little bit, because I thought they're a team that has spent a lot of money. They might want the player that's a little bit closer to the major leagues, but I think they go with that loud tool with Elijah Green, which is the power. And the fact is that Green, I think, has actually improved his case for the first overall pick in this draft in recent months. I have him going to Texas. And then right after that, Brooks Lee, the Pirates. I think the Pirates did a really good job in the last draft of balancing the players who could get to the major leagues quickly versus building the farm system overall, which they needed to do. And I think Brooks Lee, could help them contend a little bit faster and make them better off long term. And then number 5, I have the Nationals taking Tamar Johnson. And I was torn again between Tamar Johnson and Kevin Parada for that pick. But the reason I went with Johnson is that the Nationals, number 1, like that one loud tool. And last year with Brady House, it was the power. If they really buy into Tamar Johnson's hit tool, they'll take it here. And they tend to take players who are going against the industry grain at that time. So it could be a player who's gotten hurt, or in this case, a player whose stock has fallen a little bit through, honestly, no fault of his own for the most part, based on what we're hearing in Johnson, and feel like they can put him in their farm system and he'll balance it out where this is a farm system that doesn't have a whole lot right now, but he will give them a really good prospect who has a pretty high floor, a high enough ceiling, but then if they're satisfied with him as a second baseman, might move quickly. So I think that kind of satisfies their checklist in a lot of respects. So I was torn between Johnson and Parada to the Nationals, but I went with Johnson in this case.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, just consensus-wise, obviously we have Jones going to the Diamondbacks and Lee going to the Pirates at 4. It looks like maybe we should do Parada to the Rangers at 3 and Tamar Johnson at 5 to the Nationals.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm a bit envious of the Nationals now, at least with Brady House and Tamar Johnson.
I like Brady House a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be an interesting lineup in a few years. Do they keep Juan Soto, which that's another subject for another day, but if they keep Juan Soto and they have Brady House and Tamar Johnson in another 4 or 5 years, that's going to be a really dangerous lineup.
Yeah.
Plus, Nelson Cruz is still good for 35 home runs at that age, right?
There you go.
For sure.
Pretty much. I'm looking at the Pirates, though. I think the Pirates are doing everything exactly right, and Pirates fans have a lot to love in that system, and they're going to be a dangerous team as well. I think Pirates Orioles World Series coming up in a couple of years. Get the rematch.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I know for a fact we actually have some Pirates fans who listen to this show, so they'll probably be happy with that.
I'm no doubt, for whatever reason, I think I've said before, like I have so many podcasts in my rotation, and most of them are baseball podcasts. I legit have like 3 different Pirates podcasts in my rotation that I listen to on and off again. And I love Pirates fans. They are heated. They are Pirates Twitter, Orioles Twitter, same exact thing. We have allies in this fight against our major league club and what's going on right now.
Just don't get into Ravens Steelers right now, because that's going to be what sets the whole thing off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can respect the Pirates, can't respect the Steelers. At least Orioles fans should feel pretty confident about the ability to spend money moving forward, at least when compared to the Pirates, because they're a little hopeless in that regard.
Yeah.
True.
We'll move on now to picks 6 through 10, which will be the Miami Marlins, the Chicago Cubs, Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, and Bob, Nick, and I's favorite organization, the Colorado Rockies. So I'll start with Nick here on this 6 through 10. Just kind of, and again, a little bit of a split between the 4 of us.
Yeah, so at 1-6 with the Marlins, it's finally Tamar Johnson time. I think these 2 pieces fit perfectly, and I really do honestly love Tamar Johnson, which is why I want him to fall. If he doesn't go to Baltimore, I don't want him to be a National. I don't want to be a Pirate. I want him to go to the Marlins, because I started really getting into this draft like 3 or so years ago, and the Marlins grab every single prospect that I fall in love with. And so I love this Marlins system as well. So why not take Tamar Johnson? I think just his personality-wise, it fits. Tamar, Jazz Chisholm. Well, apparently there's some issues with Jazz Chisholm in Miami. I don't know what that's all about, but I think the Marlins take him here, and it fits like a glove. Phenomenal talent at 1-6. The Cubs, I went with Cam Collier. I think there are a lot of connections. What I was reading, the Cubs really like this kid. We'll see how high he rises. He's like 17 still. He's playing on the Cape before the Combine. I think he was at the Combine, but I know he's in the Cape Cod League already playing, and apparently he's off to a good start there as a 17-year-old kid. So Cubs good, pretty good. Third base, first base, I don't think it really matters if the bat plays as well as that does. Twins, this is where I would have wanted to put Chase DeLauder, but I think I know a lot of scouts had issues with the way he played against Florida State at the beginning of the year, and then he breaks his foot halfway through the year. So I think he does fall a little bit. This was the first time where I kind of got stumped. So I just went with Virginia Tech outfielder Gavin Cross. Just seems like a really safe pick here. I don't see the Twins reaching for a pitcher yet. So Cross, high-level performer, Team USA guy. I think he gets drafted pretty early. I hate saying that as a JMU alum, rooting for a Tech guy there. But the Royals, I can see the Royals getting weird here and thinking like Dylan Lesko maybe. But at this point, I think they go Jacob Berry at with the 9th pick, even with the defensive limitations. Like, if the bat is that high regarded and can carry him through the system, you got a pretty good value here. Power hitter who can hit 270, 280 every year in the major leagues at 1.9. You take it. And yes, our favorite organization. And I even made a note about this Orioles Rockies connection here. I got him taking Justin Crawford, son of Carl Crawford. I think, do you go with Jace Jung? I think I have him falling pretty far here, but I'm with the uber athletic, toolsy, plays, runs just like his dad, apparently. You get the sense that at his peak, based on every report I read about Justin Crawford, at his peak, it looks like he could put up very similar numbers to his dad, who was, a 4 or 5-time All-Star, so not a bad deal. But you got Zach Veen, Benny Montgomery, Brenton Doyle, Justin Crawford in the system now. It's a great group of outfield prospects if the Orioles want to trade like Logan Gillespie and Jacob Nottingham for one of those guys later this summer. Rob them blind again.
100%. I love it, Nick.
The Rockies.
All right, so Vivek, any thoughts here?
Oh yes, yeah. I like that. What's it called? I'm with you with respect to the Cam Collier prediction. Like, I feel like that's a good pick for 7. Going back to at least before that, the 6th pick for the Marlins. For some reason, at least I've been following a lot of Marlins games this year, and I think it's probably because they use 4 or 5 of our former relievers just to see in whatnot. But I'm slowly seeing a little bit of an inability, and right, this is a big statement to make maybe on the org, but at the same time, JJ Bleday, the 4th pick overall, had 2 years of struggling before finally being able to develop that hit tool, but we still haven't been able to call him up into the majors. There was a Cameron Misner that got traded. There's Khalil Watson, and no disrespect to Khalil Watson because I think he'll break out of it, but I don't know if you guys have seen, it's over now a 40% strikeout rate. So to a certain extent, I'm thinking maybe they're looking for a really well college-developed bat, similar to JJ Bleday. He's playing much better this year. That could be able to help and impact the system because they are phenomenal at developing arms. But I don't think at the 6th pick they would go an arm just because we've also seen the talent level of the arms this year, which I kind of feel like is going to be more between 10 and 30. So for me, I went with Jace Jung. I think that's a safe 55 hit or 60 tool, 55 hit, 60 power. You can try to find some room around second base, third base maybe, but I think his bat will play and he's a fast riser in the system. Cam Collier with the Cubs. I purposely did this because I would love to see Elijah Green as a succession plan for Byron Buxton. I think that would be really, really cool for Twins fans. I mean, what better person to get tutelage under or in the system? So if Elijah Green dropped to 8th, hypothetically, I think, man, under Byron Buxton, optimizing that power, that's a good pick for them. The Royals, for me, I always think of arms when it comes to them, and even especially in that series where I think it's the 2017 or 18 draft where they just went ham with all of the arms. And then even last year, they kind of surprised us with Frank Mazzucato, who was threw 4 straight no-hitters last year, which is great. But he was projected in the 2030 round, 2030 pick. So I'm always thinking arm, and I think right now because of Leshko, I think Brock Porter has made his case for the second best prep arm right now, if not the best prep arm. So Brock Porter with them, I think they'll go arm. And then last one, I think the value of a Jacob Berry at number 10 for Colorado, I think it'd be nice in their system. So at that point, that bat could really give you 30 home run power at Coors Field. So kind of hard to pass up. But yeah, I'm in agreement with Cam Collier. I think a lot of us liked him there for the Cubs.
Yeah, if I didn't have him all the way up at 4 for the Pirates, I probably would have put him there as well. But I have Elijah Green going to the Marlins. I just love the idea of Khalil Watson and Elijah Green in the same minor league system. That seems like a great time with a tremendous amount of upside to go along with Jazz Chisholm. That's just going to be a fun team. For some reason, I like the Marlins as well, even though they haven't really been good despite rebuilding for quite a while here. I had the Cubs taking Kevin Parada. I guess just switching out the Collier for Parada there, just a polished catcher. Seemed like maybe it could be Wilson Contreras replacement at one point. I have Jace Young going to the Twins. Just a best player available type of pick. Same with the Royals. I have Brock Porter as well. I think of arms when I think of them. Mazzucato, like you said last season, and it just doesn't seem to matter how many pitchers they draft. They never seem to develop one into an ace since Zach Greinke, but keep trying. And then Colorado Rockies, I have them taking Gavin Cross, but I also like the Jacob Berry pick as well. He could just sit there at first base DH and mash bombs at that high altitude all day long.
Yeah, the Marlins were kind of the first domino to fall for me here because I was like, I could have gone a couple of different directions with them. But in the end, I went with Kevin Parada. I feel like the Marlins have sort of stepped into the toe trying to win now. And Parada could help that goal a little bit, but at the same time, just be a good pick for them at 6 overall. So I like that. Cam Collier, 7th to the Cubs for a lot of the reasons that Nick and Vivek mentioned. I think that's a great pick. I went with Gavin Cross, 8th overall to the Twins. I think the Twins are going to go for that college outfielder they think that has a little bit of projection with the bat. Justin Crawford, number 9 to the Royals. And the Royals are one of those teams that I felt like I could have gone a couple of different directions with, but I feel like the Royals like the young, athletic, kind of projectable guys that they feel like they can work with and develop. And they're kind of a patient organization. So Crawford takes, a couple of years to really hit his feet and, hit his stride. I think they're going to be okay with that. And then with the Rockies, I went with Jacob Berry. I mean, I would not be happy if the Orioles drafted Jacob Berry 1-1. But if the Orioles were picking 7th or 8th in this draft and Berry fell to them and they wanted to take him, great. The Rockies will know what they were doing with Jacob Berry. It's stick him at first base, put him in low A or high A right away, and let him start hitting. He'll get to Coors Field in a few years, and he'll hit a lot of home runs. I think that's really what they're looking for, and Berry is exactly the kind of player that can do that. I think he's a really good value at number 10, so I have him going right there in the Rockies, the 10th overall pick in the draft. So we'll go. Bob has actually been keeping track of the consensus here, and what is the update 6 through 10?
Yeah, I had to put Elijah Green at 6 for the Marlins as the consensus, even though there was only one of us that had him, just based on future consensus, more consensus picks, and the fact that Elijah Green really can't slip much past the top 5 or 10 or so. I have Collier going to the Cubs. Obviously, three of us had him going there. I have Gavin Cross going to the Twins, as Nick and Zach both had him there. Porter to the Royals, as me and Vivek had him going to the Kansas City farm team, and Jacob Berry to the Colorado Rockies. It's too good to be true.
All right, so we're going to go with 11 through 15, where we have one organization picking twice. New York Mets, number 11, Detroit Tigers, 12th, the Los Angeles Angels, 13th, the New York Mets, 14th, and then the San Diego Padres, 15th. And it feels like within this span, you have a couple of organizations that could theoretically go the safe route or could go the high risk, high reward route based off of some of the decisions they've made in the past and or their bonus pool. So this is really an interesting part of the draft, and I'll start with Bob to give his mock for the 11 through 15.
I think the Mets are going to make a big splash here and go for this Kumar Rocker fellow. I think that bridge has been burned pretty significantly. I had him taking Jacob Berry. They just seem like a team with the owner that they have, that they want a big name, a big splash, get some media attention. So I had Jacob Berry going there. I had Daniel Susac, catcher, going to the Tigers. I didn't know what to do with the Tigers, to be completely honest with you, but I went with Susac there. I actually have Rocker going to the Angels. What do they take? 20 or 21 pitchers in last year's draft. It seems like they're like, we need pitching. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And maybe taking a guy like Kumar Rocker I just felt like that was something they might do that they could try to rocket him through the minor leagues and help the rotation, see how that works out for him. I have Chase DeLauter going to the Mets with their second pick. I think it's a good fit. I think DeLauter is going to be a great value pick wherever he goes, because he's a great player that, was hurt by the injury and the slow start to the season. And I have Cole Young going to the Padres, a high school shortstop. Just seems like, the Padres do well, just kind of like I was saying the Pirates do with younger talent like Robert Hassel. And I just think it's a good fit for them. So I went with Cole Young.
I like some of those picks. Where am I at here? The Mets, I have I think two of them are the same here. Mets first pick at 11. Yeah, I went risky with the first pick here. You stole my Kumar Rocker joke. Thanks for that. That's low hanging fruit. But I went with Brock Porter, the high school pitcher there to the Mets. Why not? Try again with the pitcher, right? And you got a fastball that reaches 100 miles an hour, and some of his makeup is just fantastic. I don't think it'd be Dylan Lesko yet. I have him a little bit later, but considering the Rocker fiasco last year, I'd go with the healthy guy in Brock Porter. Tigers, I have Jace Young just because at this point, like, you can't let him fall anymore, and that's fantastic value there for the Tigers. Hopefully, you can pair him up there with Spencer Torkelson in 2 years or so, maybe a little less. But yeah, if you can get a guy who's had 3 straight years of an OPS over 1,000 at LSU, he's a good player. I think it's just or Texas Tech, sorry. I just think it's some of the defensive concerns with Jace Young, maybe. So good pick for the Tigers there. Angels also went with Kumar Rocker. Like, it all comes down to the medicals. Like, no one knows what the Mets saw. So I feel like everybody is just a complete guess at this point. He looks good in indie ball. That's about it. I don't think the Angels make a big splash here with Rocker. And like Bob mentioned, they went all pitchers last draft, and yet they still have no pitchers in the system. So they need a big arm who can come up pretty quickly. And the Mets, I also have Chase DeLauder with their second pick at 14th overall. Like, you look at him and you say he's not a center fielder, but the kid can fly. I think the swing is pretty polarizing, but he led the Cape Cod in home runs. The freshman year was taken away by COVID. 2021 was also taken away by COVID. JMU only played 20-something games because COVID destroyed their season for a second straight year. Then he breaks his foot. So the kid did not get to play at all at JMU, which, as someone who doesn't miss a JMU baseball game, the most highly rated prospect to ever come through this program doesn't get to play. It kind of sucks. But yeah, good bet there. Safe bet there for the Mets. And then 15, I have Dylan Lesko. The Padres are not afraid to take risks, so why not go with Lesko? I think it's a good fit for the Padres. I don't think it's a good fit for Lesko, though, because the Padres are kind of a disaster when it comes to injuries, especially pitching injuries. But yeah, an explosive pitcher that I think without Tommy John probably could have been in that conversation at the Orioles at 1-1. So Padres get a pretty good pick there in Lesko, and wish him all the best of luck out there.
No, I can jump into it. I think, for 11, you're kind of convincing me a bit, Nick, for the Dylan Lesko pick in terms of looking at the medicals part of it. For this one, I put 11 for the New York Mets to go with Dylan Lesko. In fact, just because I remember a draft where 2 or 3 years ago where the Mets literally threw so much money at their first 3-4 picks that rounds 5 or 6 to 10 ended up being senior signs for very low minimums, and that was because they signed they got Matthew Allen and Pete Crow Armstrong and all these prep guys, and I could see a similar system where they've already got again a very strong farm system. The Mets, for as much as the Mets have traded away, I'm still kind of amazed they have a great farm system, and I think to reload that, Lesko would be a good pick there in terms of just the potential. Number 12, I think there have been a few outfielders that, at least in the system for Detroit, that they need to at least develop or at least bring up. And I think the system could use a boost with Gavin Cross. Steady bat there. You guys are probably laughing at my 13th pick when I said left-handed pitcher. I really couldn't decide. I think they'll go arm as well, and I think Gabriel Hughes would be a great pick there. In terms of right-handed pitcher, their second pick, Kai Bush, comes from the same conference, WCC, so they've seen him before. But I went with left-handed pitcher here because I think this draft underrated has really high-velocity left-handed arms, like Jackson Ferris, Brandon Berea, and even I think it's Robbie Snelling. That's also 6'9" from the left side. So I'm actually going to go with a prep arm. I'm going to go with Jackson Ferris at 13. 14, I think the Mets this would kind of be their polarizing pick in a way, again, with Justin Crawford. Carl Crawford lineage a little bit, so I think that'd be a nice fit there. So 2, Leshko and Crawford as 2 preps in their system. I think that would be really nice. And then 15, I'm actually a little bit convinced now. I'm going to go more with the prep shortstop here and Cole Young. And the reason I don't know if, Bob, this was also the thinking as well, but last year I think they got James Wood and Jackson Merrill. These prep they got a lot of prep intriguing positional players into their system, and I kind of felt like, you know what, even though they don't necessarily need this could be another maybe trade chip down the way, and I think Cole Young is a really good value at 15 as well. So that's how I'm feeling for the Padres.
Yeah, I will correct this now. I said James Wood went to the Pirates. I was thinking of Lonnie White Jr. Apologies, high school outfielder. So don't email the show.
No.
I like those Padres stuff. AJ Preller loves, rephrase that because in my head, because that could get weird. AJ Preller loves really young talented baseball players. We'll say that. So high school picks and young international players. Yeah, I think we all pretty much nailed it there with the high school picks for the Padres.
Yeah.
So I went in a different direction. A few picks here. I have Jace Young going to the Mets at number 11. Young's stock has dropped a little bit since the spring. Remember, at one point he was the talk of being the underslot college bat 1-1 for the Orioles, and he's completely dropped out of that conversation. But maybe the Mets grab him there. And then number 12, I have Zach Nieto to the Tigers. Nieto is shortstop at Campbell. I know Vivek is a fan. It sort of feels like it fits the criteria for the Tigers a little bit. And then it's a guy who could get to the major leagues quickly, high floor, but would fill an area of need for them potentially. I think he's really risen his stock and definitely earned his way into that top 15, top 20 conversation this year. So I would not be shocked to see Nieto there. The Angels, I agree, they're going to draft a pitcher with this pick. And I went back and forth between Rocker and a few other names. I ended up with Gabriel Hughes. I just feel like he fits the Angels mold of college pitcher who has sort of a safe profile and could move quickly. So I have him going 13th overall, the Angels. Dylan Lesko to the Mets at 14th. And, after the Kumar Rocker thing last year where they didn't like something on his medicals, I thought the Mets might go safer. But the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what, this is the ultimate Mets pick. This could potentially be the best pitcher in the draft. There's a lot of risk attached to him. But if they can get Young at slot or slightly under slot, and they got some money to work with, they got a big bonus pool to work with in this draft as it is, they'll be able to get Lesko 14th overall. And I think they sign him. And then 15th, I agree the Padres are going to take a pitcher. And I agree it's going to be risky, but I'm going with Connor Prelip here. Prelip was a possible 1-1 up until he had Tommy John surgery last year. He reportedly threw in San Diego during the combine. And not that I think the Padres are looking right, outside their front office window onto the field to make this decision. But I think if you want to go with a player that has a considerable amount of upside, but it might have dropped a little bit because of injury, Prelip certainly fits that bill. So I have the Padres taking him 15th overall. And Bob, where are we now in the consensus?
Yeah, I think we're pretty locked in. I gave the Mets, who was it? Gosh, Josh Young or Jace Young. God, got his brother back in the draft. Just because he wasn't going to show up anywhere else. We had some more consensus down the line, and I do think he's a top 15 type talent. So Zach, you had him going there. I gave it to him. And the Tigers, I have getting Zach Neto. I have the Angels getting Kumar Rocker, the Mets getting Chase DeLauder with their second pick, and the Padres getting Cole Young at 15.
I like that Zach Neto pick for 12. I mean, I think you guys remember I mentioned it earlier, this is someone I wanted to follow and see maybe the Orioles can get in the second pick, 33. And yeah, it just doesn't seem like they'll do there. Yeah, I mean, he really rose. And I mean, you need someone there to replace Javier Baez's succession plan, right, at some point. So.
Yep, Neto. And we just got a question here. Orioles maybe look Landon Sims at 33, and I think this is a great time to transition to the next phase of our mock draft, which is the Orioles picks 33, 42, 67, and 81. As a reminder, the 67th pick was acquired as part of the Cole Saucer Tanner Scott trade prior to the season. The Orioles have the largest bonus pool in the 2022 draft. So with the consensus here being the Orioles will take Jackson Holliday 1-1 overall, although Bob has them going to Martin Johnson, so he might play this out a little bit differently for the rest of the picks. Orioles have a lot of talent and money to spend with these next 4 picks. And I will start back with Bob for his 33rd pick in the draft and his second pick overall for the Orioles.
Absolutely. The Orioles don't take high school talent and they don't take pitchers early in the draft. Well, we all have them taking high school shorts, infielder with the first pick, and I have them taking pitching in the second pick that they have in this draft, as well as the third. I'll get to that. Justin Campbell, who I think is another guy that Vivek is a fan of. He's a right-handed pitcher with some pretty good stuff. I just think if you can get a guy like that in that position, you take it. And I think he fits the way that the Orioles are going here. He's got good control. He's got a great changeup, plus changeup. He's got average fastball and slider and an above average curveball, according to Baseball America. So get this guy in the system, get him moving up the ladder, and the cupboard may not be bare, but you still want to restock the cupboard as you break a few dishes, i.e. they get to the major leagues and graduate from your list.
Don't hate that at all. You go ahead, Vivek.
I like that Justin Campbell pick. I guess I know I brought him up a few times in the group chat, but I guess the thing that stuck out was when I was reading through the profile, this guy was actually drafted, I think in 2019 by Houston Astros, and like in the 19th round is potentially coming out of high school. And I think when I was reading the profile, I was like, okay, what are these characteristics, right? And so it's like very high spin rates on his stuff. The Orioles really love tall pitchers and high vertical arm slots. And when I thought Justin Campbell, I was like, okay, if he drops, because I know sometimes he gets mocked in the 20 to 30 round. If he were to fall to that 33rd pick, then I think this is definitely someone you can work with. He's top 10 in the NCAA in strikeouts as well. Justin Campbell is one will slowly be monitoring after our pick. Like, is it coming? So, yeah, I think he'd be a good boost in our system. Yeah,
definitely like that. The hardest part once we got to this point, the hardest part is like, where do these guys go? I looked at probably 15 different mock drafts and like 40 different lists that I could find, and trying to combine all of this in my head, which was a lot of work. But this was a lot of fun to try to think of these more tougher picks later in the draft. But at 33, if he's here, this is one of my new favorite players in this draft class. And I don't know if he's going to fall this far, but I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina shortstop Eric Brown. If he's available, like you go with, look at some of the bats the Orioles have taken very early on, like Hudson Haskin and Reed Trimble. And I think Brown kind of fits that mold, like a funky swing. It's really like mesmerizing. I think I saw a Craig Counsell comp on that swing. It's weird. I don't know how he demolishes the baseball like he does with that swing, but it works. And I found these numbers actually from Mason McCray. If you guys follow him on Twitter, if you don't, and you like draft content at Mason_McCray, give him a follow. He put up some numbers a couple weeks ago, I think, that Brown had 18 batted balls over 100 miles an hour this season and more extra base hits than whiffs. Like, that's phenomenal. So yeah, he's definitely my favorite. And if you bring Jackson Holliday and Eric Brown in the system with Gunnar, Westberg, Ortiz, Michael Hernandez, Leandro Arias, Darryl Hernandez, I mean, pick a starting pitcher in baseball that you want the Orioles to acquire, and Michael Elias can get that done with this group. I mean, this is why we're stocking this farm system with these guys. So yeah, give me Eric Brown at 33.
You know, Nick, if my pick does not drop to 33rd, I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to go with Blade Tidwell here. I think the Orioles go after a college pitcher with a high ceiling in this pick. And I think this is the kind of draft where the Orioles can sift their philosophy a little bit. And Nathan Ruiz touched on this in the piece in the Baltimore Sun today after talking to Michael Elias about the possibility of the Orioles going with a pitcher beyond that first overall pick. But they're not going to go with a pitcher 1-1. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But there are some possibilities here. And I like Tidwell because, to me, he sort of presents the Orioles kind of profile with right-handed pitchers. High velocity, needs to develop the secondaries a little bit. And in particular, I think if they can get him into the system and work on his changeup a little bit, they could take him from a guy that I think most mock drafts have, towards the back of the first round and really make him into something. Now, the question is he going to fall there? And that is a huge question mark. And I acknowledge the risk in putting him 33rd overall here. But for right now, I think Tidwell is going to be the guy that the Orioles go with if he is available here, because they can bring him into the system and kind of put him on the road, development plan they put Kyle Braddis on. They seem to have put Carlos Tavera on, which is, you've got this great fastball, and now we'll work on everything else, and we will make you a major league starting pitcher. They've done that with Braddis. I'm pretty confident they're going to do that with Tavera, and I think Tidwell fits that mold as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought that was a great pick. I think I saw the recent mock also had him there, so I think a lot of people are thinking maybe at 33 who could be a specific potentially pitcher. For me at 33, I'm actually like I'm a bit torn because I really do like seeing prep arms as well. Owen Murphy was on my list at one point. And even like any other prep arm that could potentially fall, potentially even I think Jackson Ferris was even mentioned by Eric. I'm going to go with the guy I've been following all year, Caden Wallace, 33. He's right now playing in the College World Series with Arkansas. He tied Heston Kjerstad's freshman home run record. This is a guy who profiles both at third base and also right field. There's the versatility aspect. He's got a 60-65 grade arm. So he's played both third base and also right field very well. But the thing that stood out the most, I think there's some hit tool development that needs to be made, but he doesn't swing and miss too much. Amazing exit velocity numbers. I think I saw a post just last a day or two ago about Caden Wallace had one of the hardest hit balls so far in the College World Series, just a single at 111 miles per hour. So if I'm thinking the Orioles, for me, Caden Wallace reminds me a lot of this Jordan Westburg type of pick, where they saw these high exit velocity numbers, the versatility of both third base playing well, but also in right field because you got a 60 grade arm. I don't know if Westburg has a 60 grade arm, but I think those are tools that would be really appealing. It falls under the college bet performance. So I think he's in that 30, 33 range. That's kind of where I would lean towards, because if we do go high school, I feel like Orioles may just jump back into the college realm again for that 33rd pick. But yeah.
So what's our consensus?
I don't even know if we're going to have a consensus with these
Yeah,
Orioles.
I know, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Well, as we move along, maybe we'll form a consensus, and I'll go to the 42nd overall pick. And here's something you're going to notice: the 42nd and 67th overall pick, which is that you're going to see the same player twice, but not in the same spot. And I'll start off here with Judd Fabian, who I have going the Orioles, 42nd overall. They were reportedly in on Fabian last year. I think Jim Callis was the first to have it, that they viewed him as a possible first pick after they got Colton Cowser under the slot, that he might be the guy. The Red Sox ended up getting the Fabian before him. And with Fabian, there's a player with a lot to like. Left-handed bat that hits for power, or right-handed bat, that hits for power, certain to stick in center field according to most reports, but he's also had a questionable hit tool throughout his college career. One of the things we saw this year was the strikeout rate drop while the walk rate increased. And I think with the Orioles taking that, seeing that, they're going to look at that and feel like their player development system can work with something like that. It's not going to be easy, but if you look at players like Kyle Stowers, you can see examples where the Orioles can take good power, good defense, questionable hit tool, high strikeout rate, and work with them a little bit. And if they liked Fabian last year, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't like him this year. So that's why I have them taking him 42nd overall.
Yeah, that was the thing for me. And spoiler alert, I have them not taking him 42nd overall, but taking him with the next pick at 67 overall. Thank you, Marlins. Assuming he falls that far. But I think if they pretty much had a deal set up with him last year before the Red Sox took him, I don't see why they couldn't have a deal with him And at that point, it's just a matter of where they want to take him, I guess, if they agree and everyone else complies. So yeah, to me, it's like if they liked him last year enough to want to take him at that pick that they were rumored to be taking him at, and his season this year didn't nothing to, deter them away from him. So yeah, I have him going to the Orioles at some point in this draft as well.
My second round pick for the Orioles, I'm going pitching. I'm going high school ranks. And I'm assuming that his signing bonus is so high that other teams just pass on him. And I'm going to say the Orioles, with the money that they save, go ahead and take lefty Jackson Ferris out of the high school ranks. Just give him the money. Say, forget about Ole Miss. Come to Baltimore. I just see a lot of DL Hall in this kid, just like a lefty, 90 miles an hour as a freshman, up to 96, 97 from the left side right now. I think a lot of earlier reports, I know Eric Longenhagen had that he has him as a future relief role, with that relief role risk similar to DL Hall because of the control issues. I didn't see anything more recent about the control, to be totally honest here, but I know that's probably a really old report. But you get a lefty who can throw 96, 97 sitting there. If you can clean up that control, I think Longenhagen also noted kids with his makeup, they can fix that. Teams can fix that control. We've seen DL Hall. It improved with DL Hall a bit. And I just think if he's there and you want to spend the money and you just take a second and think about the future, a future rotation of DL Hall, Jackson Ferris, and Grayson Rodriguez. I mean, who's touching that? If he's there, give him whatever dollar amount he wants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If he's there at that point, I really liked the left-handed prep pitchers this year. I think even on MLB Pipeline, they literally bunched up Brandon Berea, Jackson Ferris, and Robbie Snelling all together, and I wouldn't mind either of them just to have as a prep arm. For this pick, I'm in alignment with Zach on Judd Fabian. I know I wrote down a guys I like, and if they were to fall, I like Judd Fabian just for the sake of very much improved walk rate and less strikeout rate this year. I think he did help his value. I think the same path of we've seen hitters that struck out a lot, and Kyle Stowers hit 27 home runs last year, where he's already at 12 home runs this year. And I think you'll get that same consistent production from Judd Fabian. And then we can start working on maybe more of the strikeouts, but the same thing, right? We've already seen in the Orioles system about the improvement of being able to find those pitches that you want to do damage on. I thought that Colton Cowser article from John Mioli about how he was working on one thing about getting enough sleep, but also he's a great contact hitter, but he's trying to find the pitches to do more damage to. And I think Fabian's a little bit in the other way, right? Where it's there's tremendous power, but now I got to work on being a little bit more selective. And from 2021 to 2022, I think he improved his selectivity there. So if he was there at 42, a guy who was a top 5 potential pick last year, that'd be really, really hard to pass up, especially for the Orioles who just love exit velo too. So yeah, I'm with you, Zach, on Fabian.
Before we get to my pick at 42, I wanted to see what you guys thought about this question from Damon. If Kumar Rocker drops to the second round, do you think the Orioles take him?
It's all about the medicals. I mean, and that's every conversation I feel that anyone has about Kumar Rocker. That's the answer. But if the Orioles like what they see and they don't see any issues there with the shoulder, arm, do we even know what part of the arm it was, shoulder, elbow, whatever it was. If they don't see any issues and he's there, yeah, I'm taking Kumar Rocker. I think it was Steven, our old draft guru. Hope you're doing well with the Braves. Maybe not too well. He
was the reason for their long winning streak, right?
Yeah. It was Steven who's actually convinced me that Kumar Rocker. I think there's a lot of prospect fatigue with Kumar Rocker last year. It's is he really that good? What's going on with him? And Steven convinced me that the guy is really, really good and won't be in the minor leagues for very long. So if he's there, medical checkout, I'm taking him.
Yeah, same thing. I would also take him. It's too hard of a value to pass up on at that point, and I think right, I guess he's still showing that he can hit those upper 90s velocities, but we also see velocity sometimes fluctuate with starters and even pitchers in general. Dylan Tate, mechanically wise, right? We've seen at the beginning of the season we were 90 to 92. But then against Boston, he's 97 to 99. So it really fluctuates. And I think mechanics is something we could definitely work on. I know Chris Holt could definitely emphasize that. And that would be a nice supplement to like a fast moving arms. Like if you get a Kumar Rocker in your system, you could maybe start him at high A Aberdeen. And then from there, you're maybe talking at the end of 2023. I was like, okay, let's give him a call up if we're making a playoff push at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I actually thought about Rocker for the 33rd pick, but it seems like with most mock drafts now have him going within the top 20 to top 25 based off his performance this season in indie ball as the Tri-City Valley Cats. But it's all going to come back to the medicals, like Nick said. If teams don't like what they see, then they're going to pass on him. So he could fall theoretically if the Orioles or some other team that picks before them feel comfortable with that. They're going to take him because the upside is undeniably high here. And I was not that high on Rocker coming into last year's draft because of some concerns based off his performance at Vanderbilt over the spring, where it seemed like the velocity was a little bit questionable. But yeah, if you've got the opportunity to pick him up with your second or third pick if you're the Orioles, or even the fourth, but I don't think he's going to fall that far, you pick him up. I think you pick him up and you see what you can do with him, because this player development system has shown that it knows how to make pitchers stuff a little bit better. And for a guy like Rocker that comes in with pretty refined stuff, it would be interesting to see how he does.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with all you guys. But the guy I really want to see somehow slip is Dylan Lesko. I highly doubt it would happen, but you never know. If people are scared away by the injury and they have other things in mind, I'll take him as well. But I would take Rocker too. The guy I'm taking with my 42nd overall pick for the Baltimore Orioles is a high school right-hander as well, Walter Ford, who is another one of these Cam Collier guys who reclassified. So he doesn't turn 18 until December. And we know, the Cleveland organization, the Guardians, they had always keyed in on getting these younger guys in the system as early as possible, more upside there, get them in your program. And I feel like that's something Elias might be into as well. And also he's got a plus fastball and plus slider with above average command, according to Baseball America. They have his changeup as a 40 right now, but has potential to develop. And what do we know about the Orioles? They love teaching changeups apparently, and they're really good at it. So get him in here and do that. This kid will be an ace by the time he's 21.
So with that, we'll move on now to the 67th pick. And I feel like Nick's pick here is a pitcher that's going to need a lot of work, but an undeniable amount of talent. So I'll start with him.
Yeah, Bob's last point there is a perfect segue into why I kind of like this. When I was looking at this pick, like based on some of the mocks I'm looking at, some of the rankings, like if Caden Wallace is available, I'm taking him. Like Vivek mentioned, 111 miles an hour is just absurd for a single. I like that pick if he's there. Cade Doughty is another name that I wanted to do more on. Like I remember watching him at LSU a lot, but I don't know where he's projected to really go here. But if he's available, I'm going with another SEC guy, a pitcher. I'm going with Mississippi State righty Landon Sims. I've seen a lot of mocks that have him available in this range. So I think if he's there, I'm all for it. I know he had Tommy John surgery last year. They tried to move him to the starting rotation, but Tommy John ended that trial run. So I think like Zach mentioned, there is some work to do in the rehab and getting him back to that level of working as a starter. But the Orioles have done a phenomenal job of bringing these guys back. I mean, look at what Carter Baumler's doing this year already. So I think you can bring Sims in, and even if he doesn't debut until mid-season next year, then you work him as a starter. If it doesn't work, you've got a 70 grade fastball and 70 grade slider to fall back on. Put him in Bowie's bullpen, and he's in Major League Baseball in a couple of weeks, probably in 2024. But I just think the issue was the changeup, I believe, based on Baseball America's report. And I put that note in here that, well, if the Orioles like teaching changeups and they're so confident in that, and you can give Landon Sims a changeup to go with those two high-grade pitches that he already has, then you've got a phenomenal arm here at pick 67. So yeah, let's go with Landon Sims.
No, absolutely. I love that pick for 67. I think that was also one of I think Mason McRae's like mock drafts where he was also having Landon Sims there. I mean, he's a great resource and reference for all these. For 67, there was a I went through this thought process of how funny it would be if we traded Tanner Scott and Cole Seltzer, and I don't know if he'd be available. But I don't know what you guys think about Ben Joyce. I don't understand. I don't know where he could potentially go. But 102, 103 miles per hour is like this is kind of like that Garrett Crochet pick by the White Sox, where it's like just insert him into your bullpen and let it rip. So Ben Joyce is definitely one. If he was available, I'd go with a 67. But if I were to connect it back to that, the same way, Nick, you were on talking about the changeup, one of the best changeups in the draft is one of Brooks Lee's teammates. I don't know if he'll last then, but there's a guy named Drew Thorpe who has one of the best changeups. His fastball is around 50, 55 grade. It's not overpowering by any means, but really, really good changeup. He's top 10, top 5 NCAA right now, also in strikeouts. So really high K per 9 inning. He got more noticed when scouts were there for Brooks Lee. So I think this could be a pitcher that could also start at high A Aberdeen and make his way up. He's already got a really, really nice changeup to go with, and I think we can maybe maximize his profile. So if he's available at 67, I don't know if we'd go both Justin Campbell and then Drew Thorpe, but Drew Thorpe's another arm I'm thinking about at 67. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking of like you bring in Joyce in the 8th inning, and then you slow it down in the 9th with Felix Bautista. So you go from like 105 to 101 and throw the hitters off completely there.
Yeah.
Dang, you stole my joke. I was going to say make Felix Bautista look like a soft tossing righty. Now we're 1 for 1 with stolen jokes.
Yeah. It's so hard to gauge the market for Ben Joyce. Do you guys know where he'll be picked?
No clue.
Yeah.
So Vivek, all the points you said about Drew Thorpe, I completely agree with, which is why I have the Orioles taking him here. Drew Thorpe, to me, feels like the kind of player that the Orioles would trade for. And we'd be like, oh, of course they traded for someone like Drew Thorpe. He has all these secondaries he can manage really well. He's got a good changeup. He has a fastball. It's not that hard, but it has good movement. And again, he locates it that well. If they can add a mile per hour or two to the fastball, they've got a real prospect on their hands. So if Drew Thorpe came over from the Angels next year, none of us would be surprised. But if the Orioles have the possibility here to pick him up at 67th overall, I think they're going to do it. And I'm sure the fact that, Brooks Lee, his teammate, has been in that speculation for 1-1 doesn't hurt him at all here. I think that if you want to look at a pitcher who has sort of the opposite profile of a couple of guys we talked about tonight, including Tidwell and Sims, where all the secondaries are there. The fastball, maybe this isn't exactly where everybody wants it to be. This is it. And he's got good movement on the fastball. He can just get the mile per hour or two up a little bit. I think his stock will soar. And I think the Orioles, if they could land him here, this would be a great value. And this seems to be the kind of pitcher they like to trade for, which leads me to believe this is the kind of pitcher they would like to draft too if he's available. So that's why I have him going for that 67th pick.
Yeah, my 67th pick was already noted, Judd Fabian. So I guess I'll move down to the final pick we're discussing tonight. And that is going to be my version of Jordan Westburg in this draft, Tanner Schobel, shortstop for Virginia Tech. He is right around average at everything, a little below average in power, but he's a shortstop at a decent division college school that can play all around the infield at a pretty decent level with like average grades everywhere. So that just screams Orioles to me. And I think that would just be another solid middle infielder to add to the system.
I like it. I figured I'd throw in one of these picks that guys that I kind of like everything I read about him. I like the numbers a lot and maybe save some money here with this pick. Although since we're going like in my mock, at least Jackson Ferris, Eric Brown, Jackson Holiday here. So I'm going to save some money with Oregon shortstop. Let me find it here. Here we go. Oregon shortstop, Josh Kasevich. I've seen a lot of mocks and rankings that have him in this range. So like no power, but fantastic plate discipline, and summer wooden bat summer league experience. So, I mean, at Oregon, 498 career games at the college level, struck out just 48 times. And this past year, he walked 24 times, struck out just 16 times in 61 games. And so I think in the North Woods League, which uses the wooden bat, it's not Cape Cod League, but it's still a really good league. He led the league with a 374 batting average last year, more walks and strikeouts. So I figure, sure, save a bunch of money here with this Oregon shortstop and a guy who I kind of figure like a more advanced, maybe Colin Burns type player, maybe.
Yeah, I was considering Kasevich as well in that spot too. So we're along the same idea there.
Yeah, I went with a kind of pro player that I think the Orioles like a little bit based off of last year's draft, and that's Michigan outfielder Clark Elliott, who seems to be solid across the board with his tools. MLB Pipeline has him right now in a 55 hit tool, 45 power, 60 run, 55 arm, 55 field. Left-handed bat who seems to play a good outfield, good plate approach overall. There's been some Michael Brantley comps thrown around from what reports I read on him today. That might be his ceiling, and that would be a very high ceiling because Brantley is a good player. But I think if you want to look at the kind of players the Orioles like in this area, here's an outfielder who will give you good defense, good plate approach, has some power projection, hits from the left side. And what I saw when I looked at Elliott was here's a slightly different version of Dante Williams, the players that the Orioles took last year that I'm pretty high on. And, another left college bat, outfielder, certain stick in the outfield, offers something from the left side of the plate. So I went with Elliott here. A lot of reports right now seem to be all over the place on him. I know Keith Law has him, I think, 68th overall in his top 100. D1 Baseball has him, I believe, at 50th. So this is a guy that I expect to see kind of a wide range of outcomes on between now and the draft, but someone to keep an eye on. And I think if the Orioles could get him at 81, he would be a good player to work with and someone that fits their model a little bit.
Absolutely, I love that pick actually. You said the 55 hit part. It kind of reminds me of those, right? Similar to the good hit tools that we got with Connor Norby, Colton Cowser, even Dante Williams. Good plate discipline. Can you tap into more power in that respect? And I like that. I was also thinking outfielder because I don't think it would be. Well, it needs to be for it to be an Oriole draft. We need to get another outfielder, especially in our system. So I think I went with a similar pick. We drafted him 3 years ago, and I think it was going to be a plan if we didn't sign Gunnar Henderson or any of the other potential overslot picks. I went with Colby Thomas, and he's an outfielder from Mercer, where we drafted, I think, in the 37th round in 2019. But we tried to get him out of we tried to get him out of high school. Weren't able to sign him. For me, the thing that sticks out the most is that he improved his walk to strikeout ratio about 34 to 32, where it used to be around 50 or 60 strikeouts last year to about 20 or 30 walks. Hit 325. I know it's not a power conference, but that's something that the Orioles don't have a problem with if they do have data on. He was at the Cape Cod last year as well. 17 home runs, and I think I'm trying to remember. I think it was someone from Prospects Live where I saw a few posts about his stock is like rising, Colby Thomas, because of those high exit velocities. So, see, on MLB Pipeline, 45 was the hit tool they gave, but for power, fielding, arm, everything was like 55 and up. So, same thought process. When I saw those grades, again, that was something what we saw with Stowers, where it was like they gave him the 45 hit, but let's see what you can do with optimizing the power and everything. So the chances of the Orioles selecting the same pick, like I don't think that happens generally where the team selects them twice, but he's rated 94 on Pipeline, but I think at 81, if he's potentially still there, yeah, Colby Thomas.
So some good thoughts. And Bob, I know you've been trying to keep track of the consensus. Did we reach one in those last 4 picks?
Judd Fabian will be picked. We'll take a high school pitcher over slot. We will take an outfielder with good power and not the best hit tool, and we'll take a completely average, slightly below average power middle infielder. So there you go.
Sounds about right. I think with the pitching, and we've probably made this comment a lot on the show before too when talking about the draft, that like when you look at this draft class and all these top guys getting hurt, and so many questions about the college pitching staff or just the pitching class in general with this draft, and the Orioles are probably going to wait. That's what they've done. Griffin McClarty, Carlos Tavera, they waited to take that first pitcher. And with this draft class, they're certainly going to wait. But based on what like Brad Selick has said on our show and some recent comments in Nathan Ruiz's articles and Andy Costco's articles, I just get the sense that there could be one of these prep high school arms being taken. And it also seems like there are a lot of really good, some of these pitchers you guys mentioned, seems like there are a lot of really underrated West Coast arms. And we don't have Steven on because I know he liked to highlight those West Coast arms a lot in pre-draft shows, but there seems to be a lot of those guys available too that the Orioles could certainly grab. And the Orioles are not against drafting pitchers. Like they said, there's just a lot of risk with these guys. So they want to make sure they draft the guy with the least amount of risk and make sure it all fits. But I think this could be the year, the earliest they go with the pitcher.
We're certainly looking forward to the MLB draft next month out in Los Angeles, and we'll have more coverage here for you and on the Verge with this mock draft. Thank you to Vivek for his contributions in making this happen. We'll probably be the only mock draft we have, but then again, who knows? A lot of things can change over the next month or so. We'll move on, though, to the one thing that has been certain throughout the season, which is that the Aberdeen IronBirds are a really good baseball team. They clinched a playoff spot over the weekend, winning the first half in the South Atlantic League. This will mark the IronBirds' first full season playoff appearance and their first playoff appearance since 2013, when they were members of the short season New York Penn League. We've seen a couple of things this month. We saw the combined no-hitter over the weekend. Kobe Mayo continues to tear apart. Blue Claws pitching hits his 12th home run on Sunday. Colton Cowder is getting hot at the plate. John Rose comes off the IL and picks up right where he left off. Continues to be one of the best hitters on that team. Connor Norby has come off the IL and has been really good as well. Frankly, I don't know there's enough good I can say about the IronBirds at this point. And we've covered it a lot on this show, but it's always sort of been, and this guy has been really hot lately. This guy has done this well. But looking at this whole team over the first couple of months of the season, they have been extremely impressive. And I'll start with Nick here because back when we did our predictions, so Nick, I think you were the one that kind of pinpointed the IronBirds pitching staff as the one spot of the Orioles organization where we could see some breakout candidates. That certainly has been the case this year.
Try to tell y'all. You look at what they've done, like as a team, right? They got the fourth best team ERA in the South Atlantic League. There's 12 teams in this league. Fourth lowest number of walks, number one in strikeouts, lowest whip, lowest average against. And on the hitting side of things, they've drawn the third most walks, fourth fewest strikeouts, third highest on base percentage, right? That's phenomenal. And you look at the pitching, like Gene Pinto was the elite arm on this staff, and he was one who struggled the most, but he's turning a corner. These last couple outings, he's got 12 strikeouts, 2 walks, just 2 earned runs over his last 3 outings. Ignacio Feliz, only Grayson Rodriguez has more strikeouts than Ignacio Feliz. Just phenomenal. I'm waiting for him to just crumble, and he won't, and I love it. Carlos Tavera, I know the last outing was brutal. 2 innings, bunch of runs, bunch of hits, but he's just coming off a game that he struck out 10 guys. Connor Gillespie is striking out guys and not walking guys. That's been his big issue. His last 3 starts, I think he only has like 2 walks. And then Peter Van Loon was part of that no-hitter, which was awesome to see the IronBirds achieve. He's 7-0 on the year. I think I saw someone, it might have been the Patreon group that was like, he's this year's Drew Rom, or someone commented on Twitter. It's like, he's this year's Drew Rom. Because didn't Drew Rom go like 12-0 or something last year? I think he was undefeated. And now you have Justin Armbruster getting promoted to Bowie. And I thought Armbruster was the guy who would stick in Aberdeen the longest of this group, but he's the first one to get promoted. He's going to make his first start in Bowie sometime this week. 63 strikeouts, 18 walks in 53 innings. And on the hitting side of things, what I've been impressed with the most is like, yes, Kobe Mayo's counting stats other than home runs may not be great, but like we've heard the numbers behind the scenes, the important numbers that the Orioles are looking at are phenomenal. Like they're really good. And he's hitting the ball tremendously hard because it's Kobe Mayo. I don't know if we want to fully dive into Colton Cowser later on. I have a lot of thoughts about Colton Cowser, but Colton Cowser is doing Colton Cowser things right now. And Daryl Hernandez made a smooth transition to high A. Isaac Bellany needed a few games, but he was hot over the weekend, sailing into high A. Like, this team's got 43 wins and a 10.5 game lead in their division. And with a first-year minor league manager in Roberto Mercado, a new guy in Forrest Herman as the pitching coach, and guys like Isaiah Page, Ryan Gall, I'm trying to think of the staff off the top of my head, Zach Cole, the hitting coach. These are really young guys, and they're all putting together a phenomenal product on the field here in Aberdeen. I don't think we can say enough good things about what's happening in Aberdeen, and it's a shame that Aberdeen doesn't care to tell anybody what's going on.
Yeah, I think you ran that down pretty darn well. But we have to discuss the Colton Cowser problem. He's too damn good. Love seeing Cowser really just break out and make anyone who was questioning his start to the season be like, never mind. Walking a lot, as you would expect, starting to hit for a little bit of power, especially on the road when he gets out of that huge Aberdeen stadium that suppresses home runs about 20 to 30%. And the strikeouts continue to fall down to where we expect them to be. So not worried about him. I would fully expect him to be in Bowie by the time the minor league all-star break rolls around in a few weeks. So, yeah, and the pitching is, I mean, we could have another hour-long episode just talking about the Aberdeen pitching by itself. It's been tremendous. And I can't wait till they're all up in Bowie. And then we get to see the guys like Drew Rom, Zach Peak, Ryan Watson push up to AAA. It's the best part of the minor league season for me is when around midseason, you start to see these bulk promotions and just see how they can translate the success that these players have had in the first half into the next level in the second half.
Nick, I know you have a lot of thoughts about Colton Cowser, so just express them on air now.
I just go pull back our tape, right? There was no concern here. We had no concern. We did say that around this time frame, if he's still striking out, 40% of the time, let's have a conversation about this. Let's talk this through, right? But there's nothing to talk through with Colton Cowser. Like, I know some people need hot takes for their hot take blog sites, but like, there's nothing to discuss here with Colton Cowser in terms of his struggles. You look at some of the numbers right now in June, he's got a 911 OPS. That's elite. A 145 WRC plus, 9 extra base hits, 8 walks to 11 strikeouts. And you compare April and May to June. April and May, he had a 764 OPS. So about 150 point jump there. He had a 32% strikeout rate. He's cut that almost in half. And so, yeah, like, I just don't know, like, what more do you want from Colton Cowser? Like, please tell me what wonders you want this kid. He's not a kid. I'm getting older, and
he does play with Legos.
He does. Yeah, that's true. You look at this 20-something-year-old guy who's in his first full season of pro ball. Like, what more do you want him to do? He's progressing. This is part of the player development process. And yeah, the Colton Cowser problem takes were just, that's one of the few things, like, you can nitpick guys. I get it. There are some guys who are struggling. There's some big names who are struggling, and we can talk about them over the next couple of weeks. But Colton Cowser is not a guy you need to be worried about struggling at all.
Yeah. And, he's not coming from this big SEC power conference school. He's coming from Sam Houston State. And the John Mealy article pointed it out perfectly. He's got to adjust to professional life. And I think the real problem is he set expectations so high at the end of last year where he just looked like he was playing Little League, as I like to say. And so, yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, his performance early on, but definitely nothing to ever worry about. And he's showing us why right now. So it is what it is.
So before we move on to the IronBirds, Vivek, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think I wanted to say, like, I don't know if you remember when we first got that pitching coach, Forrest Herman from Cincinnati Reds. There was a Rule 5 guy on there. I don't know why I'm forgetting the name. Eduardo Salazar, for example, that was on my list. And I think he was a bit far away, but I loved the Reds minor league pitching staff when he was there in high A. And I think in general, the Reds, if one positive comment I could give, I think they're really good with respect to pitching development. So I'm very happy we have them, and I think it's definitely helping with the Aberdeen IronBirds. And this is kind of also testing the Orioles model in a way. Like, you found value in the 5th round with Tavera, 12th round with Armbruster, 16th round with Peter Van Loon, 19th round with Tommy Pham. Like, you found value in later in the draft and you optimized those tools, and you're seeing that now. And I didn't think Armbruster would be the first arm promoted to Bowie, but no, I'm happy for him. And then even with the just the Aberdeen IronBirds in general, I think like even there's going to be promotions obviously going to Bowie. I'm curious to see if anyone from Delmarva or heck, even depending on some of these draft picks, do we? I know we generally put them and do maybe we'll do the mass movement this year from Delmarva to Aberdeen, but I'd be curious if some of these could make that jump to Aberdeen. But I know I think it's phenomenal. They've exceeded my expectations. I didn't think they'd be this good. I think we all thought they could hit, but wow, but both ends of the spectrum, they're doing it.
So we're actually going to go to the final segment here, but this actually does apply to this question was from Added. Where does Chris Vallimont rank among the pitching prospects? Is he in the Bradis tier or lower? Now, Vallimont, just to fill some listeners in, was a waiver claim from the Twins last month who had been in Double-A for most of the last 2 years. Double-A Wichita was the Twins. Had a very, very high walk rate, showed some good stuff, but it was not enough for the Twins. The Orioles ended up picking him up on waivers last month. He went to Double-A Bowie, dominated. He has now been promoted to Triple-A, and Nick has him picked as a pitcher he wants to highlight in his final segment of the night. So we'll transition into the final segment here, but give us an opportunity to talk about Vallimont.
Yeah, that start on Sunday. That's why I put him on here. I mean, 10 strikeouts in 5 innings, and then he gets promoted this morning to Norfolk, deservedly so. I think you look at some of the numbers, and I have to pull them up here real quick. I didn't put that up there. But when he was with the Twins, like the numbers were a absolute disaster. 6'5", 220 pounds of what he's listed at, 25-year-old righty. And you look at the difference here. When he was with the Twins, he had an ERA of almost 10, a whip of, and this is in 19 innings, a whip of 2.68, 329 average against, more walks and strikeouts, 23 walks to just 20 strikeouts. And since he joined Bowie, 3 starts, 13 innings, 1 run allowed, 4 walks, 18 strikeouts. So he's been phenomenal. In terms of like where does he rank in pitching prospects, haven't thought about this just because we got another, 2 weeks, a week and a half till we do our next Patreon prospect update here. But I mean, kind of looking at the list, like, I don't know what you guys think. If you got the top 2 guys, you got Bradish, you got Bauman, and then Drew Rom area, like, do you rank him probably behind Drew Rom, maybe, in terms of the pitching prospects? Do we go that high?
Yeah, that's a debate that I'm going to be doing in my head for the next couple of weeks before our next update, just because, I mean, his numbers were so bad with the Twins, and obviously he's got great upside, and he's performed. Look, I saw a tweet from Chris Restator that said the Orioles just simply put him right back to the arm slot that he had with the Marlins before he went to the Twins, and they messed him up, and it seems to be working right away. So if that's the case, yeah, I want to see how he does in his first start or 2 at AAA. If he continues to pitch like he did on Sunday at AAA, then I'm going to have to move him up a bit, and you can at least take Garrett Stallings' place, who has hit a little bit of a bump in the road. But Chris Vallimont, what a waiver claim! I love it.
Dude, love it. And if we can go, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on Vallimont. Actually, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, at least on Vallimont, like this, you guys know I was doing preliminary Rule 5 draft before people could actually start adding players to the list, and Vallimont was on there simply because if he's available with that level of K per 9 innings, I think he was at 14 Ks per 9 inning last year. You can't ignore that. And so I was even thinking, like, way before I even knew about the arm slot delivery change. I think I found out through Fangraphs where the Twins tried to increase his velocity, and that messed with everything. I'm so thankful because on a 40-man roster, you can't take many projects on. And the Orioles clearly saw, like, they know the Marlins know how to develop pitching when they took this guy from the 5th round. And when that opportunity came, I mean, I think I mentioned, like, this was a legit prospect that we're actually getting. Even after his disaster season 2021, he was still a top 30 prospect in the Twins system. So I'd have him right there with Rom, if not a little bit above, just given that moving to AAA, those K per 9 innings, outside of Grayson, DL Hall, Ignacio Feliz right now, even when a bad year, those K per 9 innings are really hard to enjoy. I think he's definitely like a top 30 prospect that we have, and especially after Lowther was cleared from the system in terms of the 40-man, Sedlock, Brnovich, unfortunately, Tommy John, Alex Wells, we're missing him. Hey, if he performs well enough now at Norfolk, now when you think about if anyone needs a spot start, Spencer Watkins sure is an opportunity. Maybe Valamon does enough to then warrant a start maybe in end of July or August. So, yeah, a really good risk that we took.
Yeah, I completely agree. I could see Valamon factoring in as a spot start at some point this summer, maybe pitching out of the major leagues for an extended time. I'll turn it back over to Nick just to continue through this segment with his hitter. And it's a young hitter that has taken the low A Carolina League, which still sounds weird to say, by storm.
Yeah, just hashtag legendary. I mean, 19-year-old Frederick Bencosme, first full week in Delmarva, 9 hits, 429 average, does not strike out. We saw the bunt on Sunday. I'm going to make my Frederick Bencosme shirts that say something like bunting is cool, or like I need to workshop the saying. Like you can't like make bunting cool again. Can't do that. That phrase is ruined forever. But congratulations to Frederick Bencosme on like a great week, a great debut in Low A Delmarva. The bunting is phenomenal. The low velo, exit velo singles are phenomenal. The kid is just a fantastic athlete that makes everything look so much fun. And you get the sense that he has a lot of fun playing out there in the field with this Delmarva team. So a great debut, and excited to see his development as the year progresses.
I guess I'll transition to my under the radar picks, and I'll start off with Rylan Bannon, who sneakily had a 381 batting average with 2 doubles and 3 home runs this week. Was good for a 1400 OPS, 22% walk percentage to a 26% strikeout percentage. I don't know. You know, the Orioles have a decision to make with the league roster rules going to 13 pitcher maximum, and they just demoted Michael Baumann today. And they're going to need someone else to come up. And I think Rylan Bannon getting hot potentially at the right time. Maybe he gets to be that guy, at least until Ramon Urias is back off the injured list. But I just thought I'd shout him out. And my pitcher is going to be Adam Stauffer, who has been my guy for a little while now. And they finally give him a chance to start. And he goes 5 hitless innings with 1 walk and 6 strikeouts. No big deal. He's got a 2.51 ERA. He continually has low walk rates and strikes out at least 25% of batters. So I'm just happy for the guy, and I think he's under the radar, and he deserves to be mentioned as well, as long as these other pitchers that are performing well this year in the Orioles system.
So with my picks this week, I'm going with a guy that has increasingly caught my attention down in the Dominican Summer League, and that is Aaron Estrada. When we talk about Dominican Summer League prospects, we're looking at players like Braylon Tavera, who's gotten off to a phenomenal start, or Edwin Amparo. But with Estrada now through 33 plate appearances, 407 batting average, an OPS of over 1,000. And in the stretch from June 11th through June 18th, he went 7 for 14 at the plate with 4 RBIs, 3 walks against 2 strikeouts. Now, this is a 17-year-old infielder listed at 5'8", 142 pounds. We've yet to actually see him in person. I don't know if we've gotten a clip of him through social media yet to share. I don't think we have, but a guy that is right now just hitting the cover off the ball, and someone I really want to watch the rest of the way, because I don't care what league it is, but when you're 17 years old, not turning 18 for more than 6 months, to be hitting that well is impressive. And then I'll go with my pitcher, Xavier Moore. He wrapped up the combined no-hitter in Aberdeen over the weekend, and he has been one of the IronBirds' most consistent relievers this season, which says a lot given how good their bullpen has been. But in the month of June, 5 1/3 innings pitched, he's allowed just 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts against 2 walks. So for Moore, the left-hander, or excuse me, the right-hander, to be pitching as well as he is out of the Aberdeen bullpen, just wanted to shout him out. And Vivek, I'll turn it over to you. Any under-the-radar players, hitter and pitcher, you want to mention?
Yeah, I think starting off pitcher-wise, I know this is probably biased because I did pick this person as like this is the breakout candidate in my opinion. Cameron Bishop, for example, I think I liked him getting promoted over in Norfolk, and then I don't think he's allowed to run yet, and he's been doing a little bit of a few spot starts, but I think his role has now transitioned into a bullpen type of piece. Really, really nice slider to pair up with a fastball. I don't know if because I know his velo fluctuates from time to time if it's 90, 91, or if he's topping at 93, 94, but I think he's making his way into being potentially, if the Orioles ever want to take another look, this could be someone as a nice lefty reliever arm. The same way we've given Vespi a look. And I think it really does say a lot about the Orioles organization, where it's like, look, it's not just about throwing it hard and velo. Like, you can still make your stuff work. That one Paul Mancano and Nick Vespi interview was just about like, hey, I found out in the new org that my fastball actually naturally cuts, and you would have never figured that out. So Bishop, I think he's now in AAA, potential opportunity. For hitter, I really wish I put a little bit more thought into this one, but I'm gonna give a shout out to Anthony Cervideo, because I think he's the last one we're waiting on. I think he's on 30. Is he like 30 or 31? He may have just entered a list, but he's the last from that 2020 draft class, which unfortunately has battled injuries. But I was so impressed with that walk rate we saw last year. And I think recently you guys posted that he had like a 3-walk game and is now going to go to Delmarva. So I think the grades in terms of him being a shortstop were excellent. And now he's got that walk also going for him. That year that he was drafted, he had the highest WAR technically of any position player, and we got him in the 3rd round. So I'm just looking forward to seeing him again. I'm happy he completed his stint in the FCL, and just pray that he stays healthy in this whole class, because I'd love to see that. That's another boost into the system in terms of shortstop. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Cameron Bishop's doing the Keegan Aiken thing, but in the minor leagues, and we'll see if he can get a chance.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool.
Yeah, certainly hope so. And we will be back next week with a new episode. Bob, Nick, and I. In the meantime, continue to follow us on Twitter at BSL and the Verge. Also, check out BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. Bob and Nick both have recent pieces up on the site. Join the message board there. Hop in and discuss them with fellow readers of the site as well as contributors. Thank you so much to Vivek Sukla for his contributions tonight to our mock draft and for helping to come up with this idea. Definitely made for a good episode. For Bob Phil and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Sped, and you've been listening to On the Verge.